Bali is a gem among the 17,000 Indonesian islands, which has become one of the most beloved destinations for tourists looking for exotic places. The picturesque beaches of the island are favorable for surfers and sunbathers, while the groups of churches offer ample experiences in religion, culture, art history. When the Dutch occupied the island in 1906, the three rulers of the city Denpasar destroyed their own palaces and committed ritual suicide. It's almost the same as the Japanese seppuku from the point of its moral basis and the method itself, but here it's called poputa. A group of statues commemorates the three dukes in Denpasar, which became the capital city in 1958. Pura Jagannatha Church, built in 1953, may be the most visited holy place on the island. In Bali, in fact in all of Indonesia, religion plays a more important role than anywhere else in Asia. All activities of everyday life are intertwined with the communication with gods, and as far as sanctuaries go, there are more here than anywhere else in the world. Pura Jagannatha was built for the god Shanghuang Vidi. Every new moon and full moon, a glorious festival which tourists are allowed to watch, is held here. The shrines in Denpasar and the relics of the palace are displayed in the Museum of Nagari, the neighboring town. Denpasar means the city next to the market. The settlement has always been an important commercial center. Its biggest traditional market is Pasar Badung, which is on the east bank of the river with the same name. Everything that is typical of Asian markets is available here. There are animals, especially birds in small bamboo cages, sweet-scented flowers, fresh colorful vegetables, and tempting fruit. While poultry is bought to be eaten, small monkeys are to become pets. Some songbirds are bought to let them free, and in this way, the locals do their good turn of the day, as demanded by Buddhism. Denpasar is known for its night markets, which are open from sunset to late at night. The emphasis is on clothes and craftwork here, but we can find a wide range of souvenirs, carvings, ceramics, and homespun. All Balinese sanctuaries are built according to the same plan. Nevertheless, there are never two alike. The buildings stand on 2 to 3 fenced courtyards. The main entrance is called a gate split in two, and it consists of 2 pyramid-shaped columns cut in half. At one of the corners, the belfry was built. People were summoned by the bell to village assemblies, weddings, or festivals, but it could signal danger as well, for example, fire. The front yard is the scene of social life. Celebrations and dance performances take place here. The kitchen is here, and pilgrims are put up here in separate barracks. The inner church courtyard is called dalam. It's always separated from the front yard by a high, lavishly ornamented wall. It has 2 gates, one of which is for the priests, and the other one is for the commons. The pagoda-like towers are called Meru, named after the holy mountain of the Hindus. The construction of its roof always consists of an odd number of levels. The number of levels is in direct correlation to the importance of the church. The most important ceremonies are always held near the back wall, and the reliquaries are also placed here. A separate room is built for sacrificial gifts. In the sanctuaries, carved statues, reliefs, ornaments, and almost everything are of religious importance. Everything is in harmony and according to the beliefs of people here. Devilish demons try to destroy this harmony. Therefore, they constantly have to fight against them. This is done by prayers, sacrifices, and gifts. The Balinese body of beliefs is quite complicated, and an outsider doesn't have the necessary overview. Foreigners are usually only allowed in the exterior yard of the churches. it's only possible to progress further inwards on the occasion of festivals. The finesse of the Balinese is shown by their arts and crafts products. They use everything that nature provides them, such as bamboo, sisal, reeds, seagrass, and countless types of tropical trees. They're masters of spinning, weaving, and making textiles. They decorate their clothes with batik work, dyeing, and beads, and they chisel their jewels, taking ancestral samples as models. Their everyday dress is simple, but their festive costume is very ornate, not to mention the dancers' clothes. They decorate not only their churches, but they also take great pains in making their homes beautiful. They choose their furniture and decorations with great care. They often combine their masterfully carved furniture with wicker materials, but also with glass and mirrors. Great attention is paid to the choice of their reliquaries, which can be found in every home. These don't contain the ashes of departed relatives, as many European people may think, as the local customs of death specify cremating the dead and strewing their ashes into the sea. In poor families, it sometimes happens that they bury their dead temporarily while they raise the money needed for cremation. Better late than never, though, and often at the cost of great hardships, they do pay the charges of cremation somehow, because according to their belief, man's soul can only purify itself of the sins accumulated during his earthly stay and get a new lease on life in a superior world if body and soul are purified by fire. The ceremony, held with luxurious formalities in marine sanctuaries, is a very important festival. They don't mourn at that time, but celebrate the eternal circle of life, a segment of which has just closed. Seated in lotus position, the soul of the dead goes on its way towards eternal existence. Anybody who's been to Southeast Asia has seen uniquely styled statues carved with unbelievable thoroughness, depicting various dragons, gods, and demons. The tradition of carving goes back for centuries in Bali. The trees growing here are especially suitable for making statues and furniture, and local masters know exactly which kind of tree is good for what. The knowledge of this craft, as well as that of patterns used, is inherited from father to son. Whole villages of craftsmen exist in which every man is engaged in carving. Female members of the family help to sand down and enamel the carvings, while others weave mats. Usually children also do their part. After school, boys help their fathers, and girls help their mothers. The sculptures reach shops in Europe and North America through Dutch mediation. But we can find the most beautiful pieces and the widest range of goods here on the spot. And of course, prices are also the most favorable here. Batik work, which is experiencing a real renaissance in Europe, is an ancestral technique of dyeing and decorating textiles, but originally it started its conquering journey from the Indonesian islands. Its quintessence is that parts covered by wax don't take on the color when dyed, so they keep their original color. Several different colors can be used in multiple layers, always moving from lighter colors towards darker ones. Many other methods of dyeing are known and used on the islands. For example, painting patterns by hand, which is done with a pen-like tool. Many people weave textiles too. Indonesian cloth is fashionable all over the world and of very good quality. They often make the textiles more ornate by weaving gold threads into the cloth, especially when the clothes are made for Balinese dancers. The clothes of the dancers of Legong or Shangyang performances can be bought by tourists as well in the shops of weavers. Of course, we can find modern street clothes, shirts, shawls, and blouses as well. Bali, lying south of the equator, is also called the Island of the Gods, not only referring to the large number of sanctuaries. This tropical paradise, rich in natural beauties, could really be the residence of gods. Climbing any higher mountain, the view of improbably green terraced paddies opens in front of us, the monotony of which is broken by groves of palm trees and a thick tropical jungle. Bali measures 140 by 80 kilometers and can be found in the Indian Ocean between the big island of Java and the small island of Lombok. The three islands used to be one piece of land before the last ice age, just like the other islands of Indonesia, which were broken apart by various cataclysms. In Bali, there are several volcanoes even today, some of which are not longer active, while the others are sleeping. In several craters of volcanoes, picturesque lakes have been formed, and these are definitely worth seeing. Among the still active volcanoes, the most interesting ones are the 1,717-meter-high Gunung Batur, the 2,276-meter-high Gunung Batukau, and the highest mountain of the island, the 3,142-meter Gunung Agung. The latter erupted in 1963, causing serious damage. To the south of Agung, the most beautiful terraced paddies of the island can be found. To the north, we can find almost intact areas covered by jungles, while the southern coasts are flanked by high, characteristic rocks. The water coming from the mountains flows into the four rivers of Bali, and the same water flows through systems of canals to the paddies. On the island, almost every kind of tropical fruit grows, such as pineapples, mangoes, kiwis, lychees, rambutans, satsumas, and of course, coconuts. Other peculiarities include the pomelo, which is similar to grapefruit, and durian, which grows to be enormous, but due to its obtrusive scent, hotels and airports are reluctant to allow them on the premises. Besides the flora, birds of the island are also an exotic treat. Sanur has been the second biggest resort of Bali for over a century. Foreigners settling on the island prefer to buy a house for themselves here. The main attraction here is the Museum of Adrien Lemayeur, a Belgian painter who painted landscapes and inhabitants of the island for decades. In Sanur, lying only 7 kilometers from the capital, the first luxurious hotel of the island, the Grand Bali, was built. Only fishermen's small boats used to set off from this bay, but since the 1960s, it has become the hot spot for foreign surfers. Australian surfers discovered Sanur when they were looking for new places to surf. Today, over 10 surf paradises are located on the island of Bali, especially on the southern coasts. Of course, in the clear, warm waters of the Indian Ocean, other sports can also be done. For example, jet ski and parasailing, that is, a parachute towed by a motorboat. Many people fish here, hoping to catch something special, and the admirers of scuba diving can also enjoy themselves. Of course, we don't need to carry sports equipment with us from the other part of the world. We can hire everything right here on the spot. Animals domestic to the Indonesian islands have been collected and are on display in the Tamang Burung Bird and Reptile Park. The majority of the 250 kinds of birds live freely in the tropical park dotted with ponds. The others are held in cages and aviaries to be viewed by visitors. Proud peacocks and flamingos, as well as long-legged waders, can walk around freely. The range of size and color of the parrots is stupendous. We can meet some birds close up, and we can have our picture taken with the parrots, which have colorful feathers. The majority of songbirds chirp in a cage, while a larger-sized cage is for the birds of prey. The most popular birds are grackles and toucans with their big beaks. Besides the many colorful exotic birds, we can also find roosters, storks, ducks, and doves. The animals of the Rimpa Reptile Farm opposite the bird park are not so friendly, but, of course, not everyone has the same taste. Here we can admire tortoises, lizards, crocodiles, and about 20 kinds of snakes. There are harmless garter snakes, poisonous snakes, and one python, which is not angry if we take a photo of her. She's called Gina, and she's the favorite of the local children. The main attractions of the two parks are the animals, of course, but let's not forget about the lush tropical flora, which offers several exoticisms to the guests from far away, especially if they're interested in botany. the #1 resort of Bali is Kuta Beach. It's not only the most popular, but also the biggest one. In the meantime, it has annexed the 3 neighboring smaller settlements, Legian, Seminyak, and Tuban. The 8-kilometer-long sandy beach is the mecca of swimmers, surfers, and sun worshippers, but it's worth visiting for everybody, even if they have their accommodation elsewhere. Kuta Beach has the best and liveliest atmosphere, and it's the most cheerful place on the island. It's the spot for a real tropical dream holiday. Its whirling Asian atmosphere can equally be felt day and night. Nightlife is the busiest here, and Kuta has the most entertainment spots to offer. The city itself has been through a lot before taking on its current form. In the Middle Ages, it was the shelter for criminals evicted from other cities, and later the slave market, where the rich of Java came to buy their workforce, was set up here. In the 1800s, a Danish merchantman settled down here and made the city flourish. Mads Lange dealt with rice, coconut, fruit, and other products, and had greater and greater influence, giving work to more and more people, and in the end, his enterprise had a network over the whole island. Tourism started to gain ground only a century later. In 1936, 2 enterprising Americans were here. They got to love the coast of Kuta so much that they soon built a hotel. After them, an avalanche began, and many others built hotels here, though during World War II and due to the Japanese invasion, tourism was interrupted. But since the end of the war, development is unbroken due to Australian surfers and American world travelers. Uluwatu Temple was built on the tip of a peninsula on the edge of a high rock, which is continuously washed by waves. The goddess Devi Danut is respected as the protector of the sea. According to legend, the rock on which the sanctuary stands today used to be her ship, but it turned into stone. The goddess marooned on the rock became the protector of the island. The group of buildings made of white limestone was built in her honor, and from their esplanades opens a grand view of the tempestuous sea 100 meters below. Like in many other gardens of temples, frisky monkeys live and make it their sport to steal the hats and glasses of tourists and parade around in them. Halfway between Uluwatu and Nusa Dua, the Church of the 4 Religions can be found. In Bali, there's a large Chinese population, and the number of people immigrating from nearby islands, Java, Sumatra, and Borneo, is also high. In the last decades, more and more Australians, Americans, and Europeans have settled on the Island of Peace, escaping from the harms of civilization. The descendants of Christian Dutch colonists can still be found on the island, though it's understandable why there's a need for such economical places of worship like the Church of the 4 Religions, where Catholic, Muslim, Buddhist, and Hindu people have an equal chance to pray. It's also very interesting from the aspect of architecture how the various motifs are used in one complex. It's likely that there's no other place like this in the whole world. In Bali, despite the Islamic faith, which is dominant on the Indonesian islands, Hinduism has spread, moreover, a special local version of it. The aim of researchers on religion may be to get to know and describe this diversified religion that is little documented because Balinese Hinduism unites at least 3 bodies of beliefs in itself. Classical Buddhism, which is common in Southeast Asia, has spread less than the version of Hinduism practiced in India. These 2 religions are supplemented with the respect for ancestral gods, common law, and the fear of demons. Religion is life itself for the people living here. Every event of their everyday life is interwoven by adat, rooted in the ancestral belief and customs of Indonesia. They practice their religion from an early age. They believe that gods represent the good in them, and demons are the personification of darkness and bad luck. In accordance with this, gods are not persons in this religion, but personified spiritual powers. The sanctuaries, which can be found everywhere, are the scenes of communication with the gods and the presenting of sacrifices. The famous temples of Nusa Dua, built on 2 peninsulas, are also like these. Their name, Nusa Dua, means 2 islands. The pools ornamented with waterspouts with demon heads are true peculiarities. The exclusive hotels of Nusa Dua meet higher demands than the hotels of Kuta Beach. Of course, this is also noticeable in the prices. It was a part of the Indonesian President Suharto's ambitious plans to build sophisticated hotels. Luxurious hotels anywhere in the world hardly differ from each other. They're almost always the same. Their rooms provide the same conveniences. Their equipment and the layout of the suites are very similar. Their cuisine is international. At most, the decor of the foyer and the nationality of the receptionist may be different. It's the same here as well. Guests who come here to relax don't need to leave the comfort of their seaside hotel for 2 weeks. There's a swimming pool, fitness room, bar, sports fields, and in the evenings, folklore shows. Everything is done to provide perfect relaxation. All the same, it would be a mistake not to take part in optional activities, during which we can get to know the true Bali. It's the most simple to choose which guided tour we would like to take. Package tours take a load off our shoulders, but they also mean certain limits. Anyone who wants to do one of the tours alone can choose from several possibilities. They can rent a car, but an international driving license and credit card is necessary, and a good map, so as not to get lost. Of course, public transport is less expensive and consists of a shuttle bus and bemo. The former runs on a fixed route among the sights of Bali. We can get to almost anywhere by this, but it may happen that we have to transfer several times. Tickets and information are available at the tourist offices. Bemo is a kind of small bus that we can find in every country in Southeast Asia. At the most, it has another name. We can hail it anywhere and also get off anywhere. The fare is, of course, a bargain. It's a good possibility to get to know local people, but it's difficult to have a conversation because not everybody can speak English. Another way of transport is the small cruise ship. It's the easiest method to approach some settlements along the seaside. On the beach, paper kites are often sold. Asians are still the best at making and flying them. Like Uluwatu, Tanah Lot is one of the 6 imperial churches. The temple is the most beautiful at sunset, therefore it's worth visiting at that time. Let's not forget that Tanah Lot is 40 kilometers from Kuta Beach. Because the equator is close, it gets dark early, at about 6:30 or 7 o'clock. At low tide, we can walk on foot to the rock on which the church was built. The buildings were made of bamboo and are covered by rice straw. Foreigners are not allowed to enter inside the fence, but the sun setting above the pavilions gives a beautiful view, even from the terrace of the seaside cafes. It's good to know that the holy snakes with black and silver stripes living in the sea caves are harmless. But their presence is thought by local people to increase the mysticism of the place. The people living here come at least once a year on the day of the big sacrifice to appease the furious gods of the sea. On festival days, the loud crowd of the locals dressed in colorful clothes is exceedingly spectacular. Many families bring their newborn or adolescent children to introduce them to the gods of the sea and to ask for their favor. This ceremony is alleged to save them from drowning, although it's still worth learning to swim. The city of Mengwi used to be the economic and religious center of a small flourishing kingdom between the 17th and 19th centuries. In 1890, a neighboring principality conquered it. Thus it lost its independence. The pride of the city is the Pura Taman Ayun ensemble of temples. The dynasty founding king, Raja Igusti Agung Anom, had it built in 1634 for royal church services. Its construction differs slightly from the others in that all of its pavilions stand on a separate terrace. The terraces are separated from each other by a moat. The courtyard is ornamented lavishly by beautifully carved statues, and the flora could be a botanic garden. A peculiarity is that the inner garden may also be visited. We can enjoy the most beautiful panorama from Klungkung Tower. On the west of Taman Ayun, the Museum Mengwi can be found exhibiting sacrificial gifts given to the gods. Another nearby exhibition is Subak, which gives an intensive introduction to the ins and outs of rice growing. Among the other sights of the surroundings, we can visit a crocodile farm, which is smaller than Rimpa Farm. Next to the city of Sangay, we can find Bukit Sari Forest, which is famous for its monkeys, and anyone who comes here shouldn't miss the ruins of Tabanan, the ruins of a former royal palace. From here, Let's leave for the north towards sites hidden in the high mountains. In Bali, we can find shrines not only in churches, but also in the corners of each garden, allowing people to feel closer to the heavenly powers. It's a respected job to create shrines, and they're sold in the master's workshop like gravestones are sold in Europe. They make innumerable kinds, and the locals spend a lot of time choosing the right one. The paddies and jungles of Bali are kept emerald green by the tropical rain. The rainy season lasts from October to March, during which it rains almost every day. First, it rains only in the high mountains, and it reaches the seaside only by the afternoon. In this way, it doesn't really disturb our holiday. Between April and September, the weather is absolutely dry. This is considered peak season and is evident in prices as well. Despite the fact that Bali is 8 degrees south of the equator, the heat is not unbearable. The humidity is quite high, but we can soon get used to it. Of course, the tropical sun has to be taken seriously. A good swim in the sea gives us some relief from the sweltering heat, but we can also go to a botanical garden where the lush flora provides shade and filters the air. On the island, quite a few such gardens and national parks can be found. In central Bali, Kebun Raya Ekakarya Bali is the most popular. In this 1 square kilometer area lying on the side of Pohom Mountain, we can see 650 different kinds of trees and 400 kinds of orchids. A lot of school children like coming here to study and relax. Seeing the fantastic range of fruit and vegetables at the markets, we may feel like tasting the specialties of the Indonesian cuisine. Of course, the basic ingredient of the dishes is rice, which is called nasi here, or glass noodles called bakmi. The rice seasoned with vegetables and spices is often marked as one-course dish on local menus, but tourists and those who eat a lot may supplement it with meat or fish. The most popular spices are garlic, ginger, soy sauce, and chili, so we can see that the majority of the dishes are hot and spicy. The hottest ones are the specialties of Lombok Island, the sasaks. Nasi goreng is rice with roasted vegetables, also known from the cuisine of China. With it, we can eat satay, which is chicken or pork roasted on a spit, or lavar, which is a seasoned minced meat dumpling. Balinese festive dishes are pig roasted on a spit and betutu babek, smoked duck. Like on every island, seafood is also popular here, where we can find roasted fish and skewered crabs. In Bali, people drink coffee as well as tea, and there's no need to import either of them. The local coffee is stronger than accustomed, while the tea is weaker. The atmosphere of the Pura Ulun Danu Batur temple is determined by the eternal fog. The mystical shrine built on the edge of the crater of a volcano is a photographer's dream. Originally, the building stood lower on the side of the crater until the volcano ended it in 1926. We learn the following from a guidebook. The specialty of Ulun Danu is that its high priestess is an adolescent virgin girl who chooses 24 boys from the village to be priests. The highest position among priests is the Yerogdye, who is also chosen by the female high priestess from among the young priests. Yero's task is to present offerings to the high priestess and later that night to see to her needs in bed. Yerogdye decides in the controversial issues of the village. He brings his judgment in the spirit of Adat. The female chief priestess is allowed to stay in the church until she loses her virginity or until the first menstruation. Then a new female chief priestess has to be chosen. It's a great honor to reach the shrine. Later on, when the girl gets married, she can use her former position as a dowry. The history of the island is lost in the mists of time, but scientists consider Java and the neighboring islands to be the cradle of humanity. It's for sure that when in the 6th century Indian people started to immigrate to the islands of Indonesia, they encountered developed cultures. During this time, the activity of Buddhist monks and Hindu Brahmins who spread these two religions on the island may have taken place. Local tribes mixed them with their ancestral cult during this time, and their belief has been retained in this form up till now. The system of castes, which of the Indonesian islands is still used only in Bali, was also formed due to Indian influence. Bali's companionship with Java became stronger in the 10th century when the Balinese Duke Udayana married Duchess Mahendradatta from Java. Their descendants created the great empire of Java. Ambitious nobles fought to separate from Java. By 1528, the intention of Bali to become independent had reached the point that the Lord entered into an alliance with the Portuguese, who gained power in Southeast Asia at the time. They were the first to break the news in Europe about the island. The natives were friendly to the Dutch at first. The Dutch East Indian Company put an end to this good relationship. The eagerness of the Dutch and their steps taken in the interest of commerce earned the hatred of the local people. The colonists occupied the north part of the island. This partial occupation lasted for centuries until, under the pretext of the accident of a Chinese commercial ship, the Dutch occupied the island entirely. The load cast ashore was collected by the locals, which the Dutch put down as theft, and started a punitive expedition. During the Second World War, the inhabitants were glad about the Japanese conquerors and realized only later that they were even crueler than the Dutch. At the end of the war, the Japanese pulled out of the island and the inhabitants were able to defeat the Dutch, who wanted to return, in a battle at Marga. So in this way, Indonesia achieved its independence under President Sukarno's control. The independent state was acknowledged in 1946 by the world and in 1949 by the Netherlands. Singaraja means Lion King, which of course has no connection with the famous animated cartoon. This is the name of Bali's second largest city. The settlement with a population of 100,000 used to be the administrative center of the island during Dutch colonization. Here we can still see some Dutch-style buildings. Moreover, there are Chinese and Muslim houses as well. But Singaraja is not only an architectural open-air museum, but also a modern center of education and a busy commercial city. Its seaside with palm trees is popular with the people living here, who like going to the extraordinary bath of Selamat Batang as well. The pools with warm water are filled by waterspouts carved from stone. On the terraces between the pools, we can rest in the shade of palm trees, and a pool with cold water of the mountain spring stimulates circulation. Klungkung can be found on the southeastern side of the island. Klungkung was the ancient capital of Bali, which is located 4 kilometers from Semarapura. Among the remaining ancient buildings, the building of the former court attracts the most visitors. The king used to judge here in those cases that were beyond the rural magistrate's range. The frescoes of the beautifully decorated building are illustrations of Mahabharata and Ramayana, gods who prevent people from committing a sin. The gilt frescoes depict mythological animals and monsters, while a colorfully painted wooden statue personifies the mythological lion, Singaraja. However tempting the cool waves of the Indian Ocean are, we should take the tropical sun seriously. At noon, it's unwise to spend much time in the sun, and it's always advisable to use suntan lotion with the high sun protection factor. Acclimate yourself to the sun gradually and drink a lot of liquids. We shouldn't forget that we aren't as used to this climate as the local people, who even do physical work in the hot sun.
That is not durable. But the base of the temple, the gate of the temple is original from 8th century, 1,200 years ago.
The mother temple of Besakih, otherwise known as Pura Basukian Pusayagat, is the most important imperial temple of Bali. These temples are the locations of every big feast in which all the islanders, young and old, participate. The temple, just like Ulun Danu, was built on the side of a crater. Since the megalithic age, there's been a serious religious reason for building temples on volcanoes. In the ancient natural religions, fire and volcanoes were respected as gods. According to Balinese belief, the main god is Gunung Agung, for whom the holy mountain was named. The road leading to Besakih is an ancient pilgrim road leading to 4 temples, Bangun Sakti, Ulun Kulkul, Batari Sri, and Pura Panataran Agung. This road used to be accessible only on foot, but today we can hire a motorbike with a driver. However you reach it, the first sight is by a split pyramid-shaped inner gate. We aren't allowed to enter if our arms or legs are uncovered. Thus, we may have to rent a sarong. Permission must be asked before taking any photographs, and we must take care not to hurt the local people's feelings. In the yard beside Brahma and Siva's throne, we can find the place of Besakih Holy Trinity, Sangha Agung. The pagodas with 7, 9, and 11 towers are named Meru, after the Hindus' holy mountain. They're shrines, but at the same time, they're also symbols, which are difficult to explain. The sacrifices shown at the big feasts held here mean a cleansing and gaining the grace of the gods, In other words, the hope for a happy life. Such feasts are organized every month, but there are some which are only annual affairs, or even every 10 or 100 years. Ekadesa means 11, which is the number of those cosmic gods to whom we have to offer a sacrifice every 100 years. The believer who has the chance to participate in such a special ceremony during his lifetime can be happy. Many people don't know about these uncommon feasts. Anyway, Balinese time is so complicated that only a few local hierarchs can see through it aptly. A year consists of 30 weeks and 210 days, and due to its connection with astronomy, astrologists may be interested in it. The volcanic Batur mountain and its surroundings hide several natural beauties, so it's no coincidence that it's the favorite place of hikers. On the island, several volcanic lakes can be found, but the biggest is Lake Batur, which is about 3 by 8 kilometers. It's about 500 meters from the edge of the crater, and on its coast we can find several small settlements. Departing from Kedasan village, we can have a boat ride on the lake, and nearby there is a bath with warm water if we find the lake too cold. You can't get to know Bali completely without watching a performance of a local dance. In the Batu Bolan shrine, masked dancers perform more than 10 kinds of authentic Indonesian dances for tourists. For example, Lenggong is a dance for children, and Shanggang that of young girls. We can also see 2 types of men's dances with dolls and masks, which are rooted in traditions and are a worthy farewell for this paradise-like island.